Evelyn Carter, a 72-year-old woman, has lived a quiet, unassuming life in a small town. She lost her husband many years ago and raised her children on her own. Over the years, she built strong relationships with her neighbours and friends, becoming an integral part of the community. Every morning she rises early, tends to her home, waters her garden, and sometimes takes a stroll in the nearby park. Living in this peaceful neighbourhood, she finds comfort in the simplicity of routine. One day, Evelyn heads to the local market to buy fresh vegetables and fruit. It's a familiar routine, one she's been following for years. The market, a small but well-established local shop, is a place she knows well. The owners, cashiers, and even the regular customers are familiar faces she's known for decades. Evelyn enjoys the predictability of this place, and every time she walks in, it feels like home. However, today will be different. Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to take a moment. If you're already feeling the power of this journey, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. This helps us bring more important stories like this to you. As Evelyn enters the store, picking out a few items on her shopping list, she hears the distant sound of police cars. In this small town, seeing police presence is unusual, but it doesn't immediately raise any alarm. Still, as she proceeds down an aisle, she suddenly finds herself face to face with two officers, Officer Daniels and Officer Thompson. She's surprised, but assumes they're just passing through. But as she turns to continue her shopping, something in their demeanour catches her attention. They're standing a little too close, their expressions cold. She wonders for a moment why they're near her, but brushes off the thought, thinking they must just be doing their rounds. Evelyn proceeds with her shopping, trying to keep a low profile. But the moment she grabs a loaf of bread from the shelf, Officer Daniels steps forward and asks, "Excuse me, ma'am, could I see your ID?" Evelyn pauses for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. "I'm just shopping, officer. Is there something I can help you with?" she responds, trying to keep her voice calm. At this, Officer Thompson steps in, his tone more aggressive. "Are you sure you're supposed to be here? You don't seem like you belong in this part of town." Evelyn is taken aback, not fully understanding the question. The officers continue to press her, asking for identification and questioning her presence in the store. Evelyn is confused. She's been coming here for years without issue, and the sudden scrutiny feels unnerving. She doesn't understand why they are treating her like this. "Is there a problem here?" Evelyn asks, trying to maintain composure. She can feel the tension building in the air, the uneasy feeling of being watched. But the officers don't let up. Officer Daniels glances at her briefly before looking at his partner and saying, "Let's check the system." I'm not so sure about her. Evelyn, now growing uncomfortable, starts to feel a strange mix of fear and anger. She knows she has nothing to hide, but there's a sinking feeling that something is off. The questioning intensifies as Evelyn is made to stand by the checkout counter. The officers continue to ask probing questions about her life, her background, and why she's in the store. They don't provide any explanation for their actions. Evelyn, her heart pounding, begins to feel humiliated in front of the other shoppers who are starting to notice the scene. "Why are you making me do this?" she finally asks, her voice trembling but firm. "I'm just a senior woman trying to buy some groceries. Is that a crime now?" At this point, one of the shoppers, a woman named Maria, who has seen Evelyn shopping at this market for years, steps forward. She recognizes the injustice of the situation. "Excuse me, officers, but why are you bothering her?" "She's been coming here for years and everyone knows her," Maria says, standing between Evelyn and the officers. The officers remain unmoved. Officer Thompson tries to wave her off, but Maria doesn't back down. Evelyn, though visibly shaken, feels a small sense of relief at the support. She looks around at the other shoppers, some of whom are whispering, others looking away in silence. Despite her discomfort, Evelyn stands her ground. She refuses to let them push her around any longer. "I've lived here my whole life," Evelyn says quietly but with resolve. "I've raised children here, I've worked here, and I have every right to be here. You don't get to treat me like this." The officers exchange a glance, unsure of how to respond. Finally, Officer Daniels steps back and says, "We're just doing our job." But Evelyn knows something is wrong. She's been racially profiled, and the system that is supposed to protect her has turned its back. Despite the humiliation, she takes a deep breath and walks out of the store with Maria at her side, her mind racing with the weight of the encounter. After the incident at the market, Evelyn feels shaken but tries to move on. She spends the next few days at home, quietly reflecting on what happened. However, the events of that day continue to weigh heavily on her mind. The cold, dismissive behaviour of the officers lingers, leaving Evelyn feeling unsettled. She can't shake the feeling that something more is brewing. One evening, as she sits in her living room, Evelyn's phone rings. It's a number she doesn't recognise. With a sigh, she answers. "Hello?" she says. A harsh, distorted voice responds, "We know who you are. Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you." Evelyn freezes. Her heart races as she tries to comprehend what's happening. The voice is barely audible, but the threat is clear. They know her. They're watching her. And now they're sending a message. For a moment, Evelyn considers ignoring it, pretending it didn't happen. But the fear is real. This is no longer just about the encounter at the store, it's something much bigger. She can feel her safety slipping away. The phone call ends abruptly, and Evelyn sits motionless, trembling. She never imagined her simple act of standing up to an injustice would lead to threats against her. The weight of fear and confusion settles in, and Evelyn feels vulnerable in her own home. The next morning, Evelyn tells Maria about the phone call. Maria insists that Evelyn report it to the police, but Evelyn knows the officers in question are not allies. They are the ones who first made her feel like a criminal. How can she trust the system that turned a blind eye to her dignity? Evelyn hesitates, but as the days pass, the fear begins to grow. She knows she can't stay silent. The threats are a reminder that her fight is not over, and that it's only just beginning. Despite her fears, Evelyn refuses to cower. She knows that silence will only allow this kind of injustice to fester. She begins to share her story with others, starting with close friends and family. As she opens up, she's met with an outpouring of support. Many of them, especially the younger members of the community, express their outrage over the treatment Evelyn endured at the store. "That's not right, Evelyn. You shouldn't have to go through that. We'll stand by you," says Lena, Evelyn's niece, who lives in the nearby city. Evelyn's neighbour, Thomas, who has known her for years, also steps in. "I've seen what you've gone through. You deserve better, Evelyn. We'll help you fight this." Evelyn is taken aback by the wave of support, but it strengthens her resolve. She knows that if she is going to take a stand, she won't be alone. At the same time, Evelyn starts to notice a shift in the way her community is responding. News of her experience spreads through the neighbourhood, and soon local activists begin to take notice. A group of young advocates who focus on social justice issues reach out to Evelyn, offering their help. They want to organise a rally, raise awareness, and demand accountability from the police force. Evelyn's story has become a catalyst for change, and she is deeply moved by the collective response. It gives her the strength to step forward and confront the injustice head-on. The rally takes place on a crisp Saturday morning, and Evelyn is both nervous and determined. The small park in the centre of town, usually quiet and empty, is now filled with a sea of people holding signs and chanting for justice. Some people she knows, others she doesn't, but they all stand united for one cause: to demand an end to racial profiling and injustice. Maria and Thomas are by her side, offering their unwavering support. The young activists have helped organise the event, but it's Evelyn's presence that has brought so many people together. She feels a sense of responsibility, not just for herself, but for those who have experienced similar injustices. As she takes the stage, her heart pounds. She's never been a public speaker, but today her voice matters more than ever. She begins to speak, her words strong but filled with emotion. "This isn't just about me," Evelyn says, her voice echoing through the crowd. "This is about every person who's ever been treated unfairly, who's ever felt like they didn't matter. We deserve better. We deserve justice." The crowd erupts in applause, and Evelyn feels a sense of power she's never known. The fear she once felt seems smaller now, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. This rally, this collective movement, is a turning point, not just in her own life, but for her entire community. As the rally continues, Evelyn looks around at the faces in the crowd, young and old, black and white. She sees people who have fought their own battles, who have been silenced or overlooked for too long. Today, they are speaking out. Today, they are demanding change. Evelyn feels hope for the first time since the incident at the market. She knows the road ahead will be long, but the collective power of the community has given her the courage to keep going. In the days following the rally, Evelyn's story begins to gain more attention, not just locally but across the state. News outlets pick up the story, and soon social media is buzzing with messages of solidarity and support. Hashtags like #JusticeForEvelyn and #End racial profiling trend across platforms, amplifying the call for accountability. Evelyn is both humbled and overwhelmed by the attention. At first, she feels like a small part of something much larger, but the spotlight also brings new challenges. As media outlets reach out for interviews, Evelyn begins to feel the pressure mounting. Every conversation, every public appearance is a reminder of the threat hanging over her head. The media coverage exposes the deeper issues within the local police department. Investigative reports begin to question the officers' behaviour, and several people come forward with similar stories of mistreatment at the hands of the same officers. Evelyn's courage in sharing her experience has inspired others to speak up, and now it's clear that this issue goes beyond one incident. It's systemic. However, with the media attention, the threats against Evelyn intensify. Late one night, as she checks her email, she finds several disturbing messages from anonymous senders. The messages are cryptic but threatening, warning her to stop speaking out or face dire consequences. Evelyn shows the messages to Maria and Thomas, who both encourage her to stay strong. Despite the fear, Evelyn knows that silence is no longer an option. She has already taken too much of a stand, and now she must see it through. But the pressure is mounting, and Evelyn begins to question the personal cost of her activism. As the weeks pass, Evelyn's resolve only grows stronger. Despite the threats and the emotional toll of being in the public eye, she continues to speak out, joining local organisations, attending town hall meetings, and supporting the growing movement for police reform. One particularly tense evening, the community gathers again, this time to discuss the progress of the investigation into the officers involved in her case. Evelyn stands before a room filled with concerned citizens, local leaders, and law enforcement representatives. The tension in the room is palpable, but Evelyn is undeterred. "I've seen too much in my life to stay silent now," she says, her voice unwavering. "This isn't just about me anymore. This is about every person who's ever been hurt by a system that is supposed to protect them. This is about all of us." Her words resonate deeply with the crowd, and the support for the movement grows stronger. It becomes clear that the fight for justice is not just Evelyn's, it is a collective effort. The community, emboldened by her bravery, begins to demand real change. Evelyn's story becomes a catalyst for broader conversations about police reform and racial justice. She's invited to speak at rallies and protests, where her words continue to inspire others, but she also finds herself dealing with the personal costs. There are moments of doubt, moments when she feels exhausted and unsure if the fight is worth it. Yet every time she sees the faces of the people who stand behind her, she's reminded of the importance of the journey. Despite the obstacles, Evelyn knows that her fight is not in vain. The small steps of justice that are slowly unfolding, changes in local police practices, greater accountability in the force, are signs that her voice is being heard. As the case moves forward, Evelyn's courage and resilience become a beacon of hope for others who have suffered in silence for too long. Through it all, she has learned one powerful lesson. The fight for justice is never easy, but the strength of community and the courage to stand up for what is right can bring about real change. Evelyn's journey is a powerful reminder of the strength of individual resilience and the collective force of community action in the face of racial injustice. What starts as an ordinary day for a 72-year-old woman, grocery shopping, just another errand, soon turns into a confrontation with the harsh realities of racial profiling and the systemic racism that persists in everyday life. Evelyn's story goes far beyond a single event. It's a reflection of the wider social issues we often overlook and the lessons we can all learn in the pursuit of justice. Evelyn was a woman who had seen many seasons in her life, weathered hardships, and witnessed the deep divides in society. Despite her age and experiences, she was not immune to the prejudice that still exists in so many places. The encounter she faced in that grocery store is not an isolated one, but rather a common scenario for many who have been subjected to discrimination based on their race. It's easy to ignore these injustices when we don't see them firsthand or when we assume that things are better than they used to be. But Evelyn's story forces us to confront this uncomfortable truth. Racial inequality is not just a relic of the past, it is an ongoing issue that needs to be actively addressed. The lesson to take from Evelyn's story is about speaking out against injustice, no matter the cost. So many of us are quick to shy away from confrontation, whether because we fear retaliation, we don't want to cause trouble, or we assume our voice won't make a difference. But just as Evelyn chose to stand her ground and share her story, we too must find the courage to speak up. Silence allows injustice to persist. The uncomfortable truth is that if we don't address the wrongs we witness, they will continue to fester in our communities and in our systems. One of the most important takeaways from Evelyn's experience is the importance of community solidarity in the fight against oppression. After the initial confrontation with the police officers, Evelyn found herself in the midst of a growing movement, not one that she started, but one that she inspired through her actions. Her bravery wasn't just about standing up for herself. It became about standing up for all those who have suffered in silence for far too long. She found her voice, and in doing so sparked others to find theirs. This is a lesson we should all take to heart. No one is truly free until we are all free. Change can't happen in isolation. It happens when we unite, support one another, and demand change together. Another vital lesson from this story is the role of accountability in the fight for justice. Evelyn didn't just accept the treatment she received as normal, nor did she let the intimidating messages she received afterward deter her from continuing her journey. Instead, she demanded accountability for the actions of the police officers and insisted that her voice, and the voices of those like her, be heard. Justice requires transparency, and transparency requires courage. By sharing her experience, Evelyn took the power back into her hands, refusing to allow her story to be minimized or ignored. She showed us that our experiences matter, and when we share them, we put pressure on those in power to confront the systems of inequality that perpetuate harm. We also see, through Evelyn's persistence, the crucial role of activism and public advocacy in creating societal change. When the community rallied behind her, when they supported her and amplified her voice, they became part of something larger, a movement for justice. Each small act of solidarity created the momentum needed to challenge the status quo and demand reform. The power of activism lies in its ability to turn individual pain into collective action. Evelyn's willingness to stand tall in the face of adversity didn't just change her life, it changed the lives of others and inspired them to act. This is why activism is so vital. It channels personal experiences into a collective force that can shake the foundations of systemic oppression. We must also recognize the role of social media and modern communication in spreading these stories and rallying support. Evelyn's story quickly went viral, not because she sought fame, but because her truth resonated with so many who had felt the sting of injustice in their own lives. Social media has become an essential tool for those fighting for equality, allowing people to share their stories and call attention to injustices that may have otherwise been swept under the rug. The digital age has amplified our voices, making it easier to stand together in the fight for justice. We no longer have to face these struggles alone. We have the world's attention, and that attention can be used for change. The ultimate lesson Evelyn's story teaches us is that we all have a responsibility to speak out. It is easy to feel powerless in the face of overwhelming odds, but Evelyn showed us that change starts with one voice, one person daring to speak truth to power. Her courage in confronting the police officers and her willingness to continue speaking out despite the threats she faced shows us that resilience is not just about surviving adversity. It's about challenging the systems that create it in the first place. The story of Evelyn is a call to action for us all. It's a reminder that we can never stop fighting for justice, equality, and accountability. We must be vigilant in our advocacy, never complacent, and always ready to stand up when we see wrong being done. It's not just about one person. It's about all of us coming together and using our collective power to bring about change. So, as we reflect on Evelyn's journey, let it inspire us to act. Let it remind us that even in the face of fear, we can stand tall. Let it urge us to speak up when we see injustice, knowing that our voices together are powerful enough to make a difference. Justice may be a fight, but it's a fight worth having, and with each step forward, we move closer to creating a world where everyone can walk in dignity and peace. In the end, Evelyn's story is about more than just one woman. It's about all of us. And when we stand together, united in our quest for justice, we create a future where the voices of the marginalized are not only heard, but respected. That's a future worth fighting for. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to light. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and stay compassionate.